Okay, do something for me. Right now. Pinch yourself. No, seriously, go ahead. You feel that? That little sting? That sensation? It's real, right? You can't deny it. But here's the question. What is the thing that's feeling it? And this is where it gets weird. See, we know what you're made of. On a physical level, you're just stuff. About 7 octillion atoms, to be precise. That is a 7 followed by, get this, 27 zeros. It's just a massive pile of atoms. So where in all that stuff is the you? The one that felt the pinch? The one that's listening to me right now? All right, let's try and track it down. The logical place to start is with the hardware, right? Let's go looking for this ghost in the atoms. So, of course, we look at the brain first, and what we find inside is just staggering. You've got about 86 billion neurons packed in there. To put that in perspective, that's about the same number of stars in our entire Milky Way galaxy, just inside your head. And it gets even crazier. Those 86 billion neurons aren't just floating around. They're connected. And the number of connections is, well, it's about 100 trillion times. I mean, if you even tried to count them one per second, it would take you more than 3 million years. The complexity is just off the charts. But here's the punchline. This is the absolute core of the mystery. With all that mind-boggling complexity, when we use our most powerful tools to look inside, all we find is wetware. We see cells, we see tiny electrical zaps, we see chemicals sloshing around, we see the machinery, but we can't find the person operating it. We never ever find the experiencer. So, you see, this isn't just some little scientific riddle we haven't figured out yet. This is arguably the deepest, most profound mystery in all of science. It's so tough, it has its own name, the hard problem of consciousness. And at the heart of the hard problem is this idea called qualia. It sounds technical, but it's super simple. It's just the subjective, personal feeling of something. Like, think about the color red. You know, light waves of a certain frequency hit your eyeballs, and a bunch of neurons fire in your brain. But wait a minute, those light waves aren't red, and the neurons firing aren't red either. So where does the redness itself come from? That feeling, that experience, that's qualia. And this is a really important distinction to make. Scientists are actually getting amazing at what they call the easy problems. Things like, mapping which parts of the brain light up when you see a face, or how it processes sound. That's the mechanics. But the hard problem, that's a whole other beast. It asks a much simpler and much more profound question. Why should all that mechanical processing feel like anything at all? Why isn't it all just happening in the dark without an inner experience? Why is there an inside to begin with? So you see why just saying, oh, consciousness comes from the brain is a total non-answer. It's like if you asked a mechanic, how does this car work? And they just pointed to the hood and said, the engine. Well, yeah, obviously. But how? It's not an explanation. It's just pointing at the box where the magic happens. We're still completely missing the how. Okay, so if you thought that was weird, hold on. Because the problem gets even stranger when we start to question something we take for granted every single second of our lives. The idea that you are one single unified mind. All right, look at an apple. Or just picture one in your mind. Seems simple, right? One apple. But in your brain, it's a totally different story. There's no single apple spot in there. The redness of the apple is being processed in one part of your brain. Its round shape is being handled somewhere else entirely. And if it's rolling, that motion is being processed in yet another spot. It's all scattered. So here's the big question. How on earth does your brain take all these separate scattered pieces of information and stitch them together so that you just experience one apple? It's seamless for you, but it's a huge puzzle for neuroscience. They call it the binding problem. And to be honest with you, nobody really knows how it works. And this is where it goes from a puzzle to just plain bizarre. There are these patients called split brain patients, where the connection between the two halves of their brain has been severed. Now, check this out. You can show an image, say a key, to just one half of their brain, the right side. And if you ask them what they saw, they'll say, I saw nothing. Why? Because the language center is in the other half of the brain. But then you ask them to draw what they saw with their left hand, which is controlled by the right brain, and they'll draw a key perfectly. It's spooky. It really makes you ask, is there more than one person living inside that skull?
Okay, let's leave the lab for a second and try a thought experiment. This is a classic one. Imagine a future with a teleporter, like in Star Trek. It works by scanning your body down to the last atom, every single detail. Then, and this is the important part, it destroys your original body on Earth while it sends that information to a receiver on Mars.
And on Mars, a machine reassembles a perfect copy of you using brand new atoms, but arranged in the exact same pattern. This new person, this copy, has all your memories, all your quirks, your hopes, your fears. From their perspective, they are you. The trip was instantaneous. So, here's the question. Is that person on Mars actually you? Or did the original you die in that machine on Earth, and the thing on Mars is just a clone, a perfect copy that just thinks it's you, carrying on your life? And the really chilling part? The person on Mars would never know. They'd feel completely continuous with your life up to that point. How could you ever know for sure if you were the original or the copy? So yeah, these paradoxes, they really show just how slippery this whole concept of self and mind is. It's not straightforward at all. So faced with all this weirdness, what are some of the theories people are exploring to try and find the source? Okay, so there are a few big ideas floating around. One is that consciousness isn't in the neurons themselves, but in the brain's overall electromagnetic field. Sounds cool, but then you have to ask, why isn't a refrigerator magnet conscious? It has an EM field. Then you've got theories involving quantum mechanics, suggesting consciousness pops out of weird quantum effects in the brain. But most physicists think the brain is way too warm and messy for that kind of delicate stuff to happen. And honestly, even if one of these was right, we're back to square one. It doesn't explain why an EM field or a quantum state would have a subjective experience.
The failure of these theories to really answer the core question is forcing some people to think way, way outside the box, to maybe zoom out from just the brain and ask a much bigger, more profound question. What if what we're talking about here isn't just a biological fluke, but the universe itself waking up? Now, you might hear some people try to hand-wave this all away. They'll say, oh, consciousness is just an illusion. But that idea just doesn't work. Think about it. An illusion has to be an illusion to someone. You can't have a deception without someone being deceived. So the very act of being fooled by the illusion of consciousness is itself a conscious experience. So that one's out. So this leads us to a really wild but fascinating idea. What if we've been looking at it all wrong? What if the brain doesn't produce consciousness any more than a TV produces the shows it displays? What if consciousness is a fundamental property of reality itself, just like space, time, or gravity? And maybe the brain is just an incredibly complex biological machine, an antenna that has evolved to tune into it and collapse it into a single personal experience. If you think about it that way, it totally reframes everything. It means you're not just some little creature living in the universe. You are the universe. You are a little piece of the cosmos that has woken up and is now looking out at itself. Your consciousness is the universe's consciousness. I mean, just think about that for a second. The very atoms in your body, the carbon, the oxygen, they were forged in the fiery heart of a star that exploded billions of years ago. That stardust drifted through space, clumped together to form this planet, and eventually arranged itself into you. A collection of stardust that can now think and feel and ask, what am I? Look, the honest truth is, nobody has the final answer. Not yet. It might be the biggest question we can even ask. So I have to leave it with you. After all this, what do you think is going on here? Where is the you that's hearing these words right now? Where does your mind really exist?